Ranger Carl, and I'm so happy that you can join me on board the boat today for this 1 hour long sightseeing and narrated cruise of the Mississippi River. The Arch National Park, which is our country's smallest national park at 93 acres. Gateway Arch National Park protects and preserves our country's tallest national monument, the Gateway Arch, at 60 feet tall and 60 feet wide. Historic building, the old courthouse, that white dome just behind the Gateway Arch is the old courthouse, formerly the St. Louis County Courthouse. Altogether, this park, Gateway Arch National Park, was established here back in 1935. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The original name of the park was Jefferson National Expansion Memorial. It was established here to honor Thomas Jefferson, who was the United States of the Louisiana Territory the size of the United States. And later, it was for American settlement. St. Louis later became the starting point for people moving west, and our city was nicknamed the Gateway to the West. So that's why we refer to this as the Gateway Arch. In 2018, after a $380 million renovation of the park was renamed Gateway Arch National Park. Now, Gateway Arch National Park receives about 1.5 million visitors a year. Most of those visitors, about 80% of our visitation, come from out of town, like you. It's welcome you to Gateway Arch National Park and to the Mississippi River today. As I mentioned, the park was created back in 1935 under FDR. Before there was a park on this site, there were 40 city blocks of buildings that occupied this 93-acre piece of land. After the Great Depression, the mayor of St. Louis and local city established a memorial here, a national monument to honor Thomas Jefferson and our country's westward expansion. In 1935, the National Historic Sites Act was passed, and part of that act created the park here in St. Louis. All the buildings were demolished to make way for the park. And then in 1957 and 48, a national architectural design competition was held to get an idea from architectural firms around the country as to what this memorial to Thomas Jefferson and our country's western expansion could look like. In 1948, when the competition closed, 172 different design ideas had been submitted to the competition. A jury of 9 people chose 5 finalists out of 172 design ideas, and from those 5 finalists, the winner was chosen. The winner in his firm was Eero Saarinen and Associates. Eero Saarinen was a Finnish-American mid-century modern architect. He and his firm had the idea of the Gateway Arch, and the judges liked their idea the best, and their firm won the $40,000 grand prize. After the design was chosen in 1948, the next logical thing, of course, would be to build the arch and to develop the park around it. But the Korean War began in the early 1950s, and the focus of our country was not here in St. Louis, it was on supporting people overseas fighting the war. It wasn't until the 1960s that the funding would come through to build the arch and to develop the park. The agreement was the city of St. Louis would fund a quarter of the cost, and the federal government would pay 3/4 of the cost. The cost to build the arch back in the 1960s was $13 million. If we were to build it today, it would cost over $181 million. Now, the construction of the arch would begin in 1962. That's when they dug the foundations for the north and south legs. Those go about 50 feet into the ground, down to limestone bedrock. And the construction of the structure itself began on February 12, 1963. The construction of the arch would last 2 years, 9 months. It was completed on October 28, 1965. I'll be talking a bit more about the Gateway Arch and its construction a little bit later on in the cruise. I'm going to be sharing the microphone with our pilot as we cruise up and down the Mississippi River this afternoon. Just ahead of us, first thing we're going to take a look at and talk about is this beautiful was the first combination bridge. Railroad cars and trains on the lower deck, carriages, wagons, and buggies on the upper deck. This is cast steel as the material that's painted black that you see here. First type of construction project to use this amount of cast steel. The big challenge was sinking these piers down into the bottom of the Mississippi River. Now the river's high right now, but normally it's not that high. Normally the river depth is not that much. But being able to sink these piers all the way through the water, the sand, the sand, falling out the limestone bedrock, we're talking a pretty distance down to that bottom. So building those was the first challenge. Once those piers were built, and they could build the arched metal sections out from those to connect with one another, and that's how this bridge was constructed. Now, building a bridge here in St. Louis, and in the long term, and the people who ran the steamboats here in St. Louis, they didn't want a bridge across the Mississippi River because it would take business away from them. Back in those days, people would ferry across the river on boats. And they would ferry trains across the river on boats called transfers. The transfer boats on their main deck had a set of railroad tracks that went from the bow to the stern of the boat. And they would divide the train into sections and move the train in sections across the river and reconnect all those cars together on the opposite side of the river. Of course, this does take a lot longer than it does to get a train across the bridge. So finally, it was in the 1870s when we had the bridge under construction. They actually started construction on this bridge in 1867. It was finished in 1874. The bridge is still in use. Lower deck is not used by trains anymore. It's used by Metro and North South. Across it, one side of the other, use of the arch on top of the bridge. This Carla is a historic area in St. Louis called King's Landing. They have St. Louis Scholars from the area team that we'll be talking about later on in the cruise. And the buildings that you see up on the hill up there kind of gives you a good glimpse of what things would have looked like on the arch grounds, on the park grounds rather, before the park was created there. Narrow streets, brick buildings, businesses. There's no residences really over here in the King's Landing, but that's the type of thing you had over there in the arch grounds originally. We just cruised underneath the Dr. Martin Luther King Bridge, like the East Bridge before it. These two bridges are local connection bridges, meaning there are no U.S. highways or interstates that cross them. Simply a connection for people to get across the bridge from Missouri, which is to our left, into the state of Illinois, which is to our right. I'll be back with you in just a little while at the turnaround point up ahead. Sit back and relax. Hope you enjoy your cruise today aboard the Tom Sawyer with us.
To the left, you'll notice 3 floors sticking out of the water. These are called dolphins or mooring cells. This is where the famous riverboat casino, the Admiral, docked until 2010, and then they were replaying the gambling laws. The law states that the casino must be surrounded by river water. So when they get power plant they put games into it, and they have a Notion casino on top of it, which is not totally glass building. The complex was constructed at a cost of over $500 million. To large casino, 200-acre hotel, spa, and 20,000 square foot convention space. At this location on May 17, 1849, a steamboat moved close to the Federals. A strong easterly wind pushed the floating boat onto other boats lining the levee, resulting in 22 steamboats and 9 flatboat barges catching on fire. One of the boats was loaded with gunpowder, caught fire, and exploded, sending burning embers onto the buildings that lined the riverfront. The fire spread over 400 blocks. Only two buildings survived the fire: the old courthouse and the old cathedral, which, like the Carl mentioned earlier in the tour, they survived due to the efforts of volunteer fireman Thomas Tardee. Tardee dynamited the surrounding buildings to create a fire break, but was unfortunately killed in a premature explosion. The fire put every merchant in St. Louis out of business. The city then passed a law that required the buildings must be built of brick or masonry to prevent such a catastrophe from happening again.